Hello and welcome to What Goes Bump of the Night. My name is Riley Clark, and alongside me, as always, is
Trevor Jensen.
we are back with episode 94.
Wowza. 94 episodes.
It is absolutely crazy that we have made it this far. We're almost to 100, and today we're going to change it up on the podcast.
You know, throw the old slider or a change up. Probably the best one is the change up.
A little change up coming your way. You guys have actually requested it a while ago. Some listeners have reached out to us on
We
this.
have done one other one of these before,
And I wasn't here.
and it was me and Jenna.
We have talked about serial killers before, but this guy is on a whole
Does he
other
take the cake?
label.
I would say he takes the cake.
Definitely takes the cake.
The
He's
cake.
a very, very evil man. And he goes, well, not really goes by, he goes by Robert, I'm sure.
Yeah, or
But
Bob.
he is known as the Butcher Baker.
Robert Hansen. Not to be confused with the other Hansen that sits down and, and does the so I heard you're a pedophile. Here's a cookie. Tell me all about your stories.
He is basically a modern day Jack the Ripper in a sense.
Yeah, I would think so. Like
his targets were
Probably.
prostitutes, just like Jack the Ripper.
He's got a high body count.
Very high body count. Only convicted of a small number.
Very true.
Obviously, Jack the Ripper was never convicted.
I would also have to go on a limb here and say, though, poor police work.
Very, very poor police work, which I'm sure had a hand to do with Jack the Ripper as well.
But Jack the Ripper is infamously much more intelligent than this man. Much more.
Yes.
So why don't we just go ahead and dive right into who Robert Hansen was and his early life?
Interesting character. You're going to find out.
Yeah, he's very interesting. That's all I got to say. Like, everything I've heard about this guy, read about this guy, listened about this guy is fucking insanity. And the fact that he didn't get caught for so long is even more crazy to me. But Robert Christian Hansen, February 15th, 1939 to August 24th, 2014, known in the media as the Butcher Baker, was an American serial killer between 1971 and 1983. Hansen abducted, raped, and murdered at least 17 women in and around Anchorage, Alaska. He hunted many of them down in the wilderness with a Ruger Mini 14 and a knife. He was arrested and convicted in 1983 and was sentenced to 461 years without the possibility of parole. He died in 2014 of natural causes due to the lingering health conditions at his age of 75. So,
there's a little bit more to him.
There's a lot more, but the main thing that I want to focus on here is he hunted women down in the wilderness.
Yes, it has a lot to do with who he is as a person, I think. Even he was an outdoorsman. He loved hunting.
Very skilled huntsman.
Very skilled. Like, we're talking some of the largest animals ever recorded in history. Good at hunting.
He had a couple #1 records. I forgot which one it was.
It was a mountain doll sheep.
Yep.
He had the largest mountain doll sheep killed with a bow. World record, I'm pretty sure.
He was unbelievably skilled with a bow. And
even more so with a bow than he was a rifle.
Yeah, even though his like modus operandi was to use the Mini Ruger on his victims, which I think it's more of an intimidation factor, because if you see a bow, I don't get nearly as intimidated as I do with a gun.
Right, because of the range thing. Oh, if he's going to hunt me with a bow, I just can't let him close to me.
Mm-hmm.
Easier to get away. Bow hunting is very difficult, especially with, if you were hunting a human, like, we're smart.
I mean, like, think about it like this. He was such an avid, like, huntsman. He was like, what can I do to make things more interesting for myself on this hunt? Oh, why don't I hunt the most top of the food chain apex predator, another human being? Although I wouldn't say that he was fucking hunting apex predators that were like beaten, raped women.
Yeah.
That's not cool, but like, he literally hunted women down and killed them.
So with serial killers, their childhood always comes into question. And how were they raised? What was their upbringing like? What drove them to be the way and why they
Were they
are.
sculpted into this killer?
Right.
Or were they born like
were there
this?
signs before he started killing someone that, hey, this man has potential to be a homicidal,
Degenerate.
crazy person? I don't really know how it's to explain. A murderer,
A fucking sociopath.
serial killer, like just a,
Low life. I mean, we could go on and on.
yeah. We could go on and on and on with what you can call them. But his childhood, definitely, there was major sounds of alarms in his upbringing that said, yeah, this man could be a potential problem in society. And it started with him being a very shy individual.
The loner type.
He was a loner type, didn't really have many friends, was made fun of a lot and bullied, which, I mean, already that's terrible too.
Yeah, you could, if you want to go on a limb here and say, like, a lot of these school shootings, a lot of these crimes that are committed against other people for the persecution of one's, just being who they are, like, there's a big reason why you think, oh, he's exacting his revenge in a certain way because of the way he was brought up or the way he was treated as a child.
And growing up, we're adults, or you might be a child now watching us. I don't really think we make our show available to children, but who knows what could happen. We all see people getting picked on. We may have even jumped in on it, and it's a terrible thing. But I mean, I feel like it happens. And
Let's make bullying kill itself.
yeah, we'll just try to stop and bully people. I know sometimes it can be hard to even tell that you're doing that to someone, but try to watch people's emotions and how they're reacting to
Be
you.
an empath,
Yes.
Feel the room.
Show compassion for others.
Be a decent human being, goddammit.
Yes. And now back to serial killer talk. With all of this bullying and things like that, he was an individual that was led to trying to blow his school up.
But instead, he decided he was going to burn down his bus garage. And also, he wanted to blow up the town's water supply after they did this because he's like, I'm exacting my revenge.
I believe this was in Pocahontas, Ohio, Iowa. Yes, Iowa.
Yeah. And very close to where he grew up in Estherville, Iowa, because he was born in Iowa originally. And then him and his family later on moved to Anchorage, Alaska, where these heinous crimes were committed.
Yes, and he also worked in the Army Reserve as well. So that's probably how he became so good with a gun, is working and being in the Army Reserves. Because you're going to get good with a gun, most definitely. Shooting
good gun
one
training
and being trained by the Army. So burning down the education school bus garage was the start of his crime, his outlashes to society. He would spend 20 months of his 3-year prison sentence in Amarosa State Penitentiary.
Oh, also, before we get too far, he also worked as a police, like in the police academy as a drill instructor. So he had ties to the police and everything else on top of his army.
So yeah, he had police training as well. So he probably knew, how to cover up a crime scene.
I think you're still a bumbling idiot, but
he probably was.
But
who knows what kind of information people retain?
Yeah, well, once you get in tight with police too, like you probably are a lot more comfortable being around them than the average person that's like, oh, I'm gonna get in trouble every time I come across a cop. Like no matter what, like I could be doing nothing and I could still get persecuted by a cop because they're the law. What are you gonna do?
Yeah. And while he was in prison, he was diagnosed as a paranoid. Oh my gosh, I can't say that word.
Schizophrenic. I can't say it either. I don't know why. A schizophrenic.
Yes, thank you. Jesus. Brain fart.
Because that's what it means.
They also diagnosed him with an infantile personality. So, Trevor, you're spot on about him most definitely being dumb.
Yeah,
as a grown adult.
I'm sure his IQ was.
Over the next few years, he would spend time in jail for petty thefts and minor things. He then decided to the up-and-coming city known as Alaska,
The last frontier.
the last frontier in Anchorage. Now, Anchorage's history in this time was the oil business was booming. Tons of people are moving to Alaska to work on the oil fields, make ton of money, and live in basically a town that was built for people to be up late at night and go to work the next day. There wasn't much law. There was tons of bars. There was tons of drugs.
Titty bars were a big thing. Prostitution and strippers and stuff like that, like sex work in itself, you could find all over Anchorage and all over the Alaskan frontier.
And it's probably most definitely still happening today, which is terrible.
Oh, it's 100% still is. It's just funny though, because it's like you don't go to Alaska and think, oh, they have
I'm gonna go to all the strip clubs.
Yeah, but that's the thing is, like,
in the 80s you were.
There's so little police force there because everybody that lives in Anchorage or in Alaska towns, they want to police their own because, I mean, that they're in such a tight-knit community is probably the best way to explain this one, that you don't want to give away like, oh, well, he was doing a crime, instead of like, you know, like how you go to a city and somebody breaks into a car and they steal something. Well, probably half of the town knows who the person that did it was here in Alaska, and they're like, we'll handle it on our own. We won't call cops, because that's just how that was handled.
And when he moved to Alaska in 1963, he married a woman,
which would be his second wife, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. And he was well liked by his neighbors and set several hunting records. That's when his hunting expertise began to really show in his life, is when he moved to Alaska. Because obviously Alaska being the last frontier, there's not many people, and the wildlife is just abundance because there's so much land. If you don't know, if you're from another country and you're not familiar with Alaska or how we've talked about it in the past, Alaska is literally mind-blowing. It's such a large area. It doesn't even
It's a postcard.
makes sense in your mind how much land and space there is.
You could go
it's crazy. It's like
hundreds of
looking
miles
into
between towns.
the space on Earth. Like, it's just miles of trees and forest and water and mountains and incredible beauty. But it didn't take long for him. It looks about, I don't know, 5 years for him to start getting in trouble again.
And this whole time, by the way, they call him the Butcher Baker because he was a very skilled baker, and he would eventually own his own bakery in Anchorage, Alaska.
Yes, and that's what he was known for in the town.
His dad pushed him into it, even though he didn't want to be a baker. But turns out he had a knack for it.
In 1971, 5 years after he moved to Alaska, he was arrested twice for abducting and attempting to rape an unidentified housewife, and then for raping an unidentified sex worker. He pleaded no contest to the assault with a deadly weapon in the offense involving the housewife. The rape charge involving the sex worker was dropped as part of a plea bargain. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison and again only served a fraction of that sentence at 6 months.
He was a likable fellow. Like, that's the
definitely
crazy part.
knew how to work the system. I don't know if this dude was just getting the best lawyers in Alaska or what was going on, but he's definitely knew how to work the police system and the law.
I'm also on the train where
either that or they just figured he was so dumb there's no way he could have done it.
Or they just don't like sex workers. Like, they look down on them.
That was definitely a huge part of it.
A lot of it's his word against theirs. So
at this time when he was up there, I believe, I forget her name, but she will probably come across it later in these notes. But she was the only police officer in the police force in Anchorage. And she pushed majorly hard on like the respect for, following prostitutes, because a lot of prostitutes at this time were going missing, obviously being raped and like all this terrible stuff. Not just prostitutes, but the women who worked in strip clubs or had any business like in a bar.
Which, I mean, granted, you don't think like, I'm gonna go work in a strip club in Anchorage, and then I think I'm
women were recruited.
Well, not only that, I think it's more of like a turnover rate here, where like you work 6 months here, and then you're like, all right, I made enough money to get out of this town and go to somewhere more prosperous. So like people were coming and going a lot.
And more people go missing in Alaska than anywhere else. Like, I think even to this day, it's like 2,000 people a year go missing in Alaska.
Yeah, which is astonishing.
2,000 people from all over the world. They could be from anywhere.
It also makes the most sense though, because it is the most, I want to say, barren landscape that we have around here, outside of like the desert areas.
Yeah, I mean, towns are miles in between each other. It takes days to go somewhere.
You can't even get
in
most
Alaska
places without
when
a
I would go
plane.
places, we would literally be like, okay, where are we going tomorrow? Because that's where we're going to be all day.
Mm-hmm. Very much so. So after he pleaded guilty, he ended up going back out into Alaska and was on his, how do I want to say this? His next escapade, where he was breaking into these very isolated cabins and stealing things out of them. And at one time he said, it gets my dick hard stealing things and getting away with it. Like 100%. He was like, this shit makes me wet. So if that doesn't sound like a bumbling idiot to you, I don't know what does.
And if you're joining us just now
too
on this podcast, whether it's on the live stream or just watching us and you're enjoying yourself, make sure you go give us a like. I believe it's in that corner. Hit that bell and show us some love, because it really helps us in the algorithm of YouTube and just getting our content out to people so people can learn about guys like the Butcher Baker, Robert Hansen.
So after he got caught stealing stuff, like he stole a chainsaw from a store and got caught, he served once again what was supposed to be another 5-year sentence, was released with, like, how do I want to say this? He was released and required to take psychiatric treatment for his bipolar disorder. So they're pretty much just like, it's in your head, you're crazy, like you already did some time, let's just see if we can rehabilitate you this way. Didn't work.
So they had this man dead to rights to get him stuck in prison for a very long time. And it just so happens he gets away, right? And the next year is the year 1972 when he is believed to have started killing women. And by killing, I mean abducting them and beginning the process,
beating, raping, and murdering,
of hunting these people with his rifle.
Okay. So I'm just going to read verbatim some of these information, because this is where it gets really wild. Hansen is believed to have begun killing around 1972. His modus operandi was to pick up sex worker in his car and force her at gunpoint to his home, where he would rape her, and then he would fly her out to a secluded area and hunt as if she were wild game before shooting and stabbing them. On June 13, 1983, Hansen offered a 17-year-old Sydney Paulson $200 to perform oral sex. When she got into the car, he pulled out a gun and drove her to his home in Malden. There he held her captive and proceeded to rape her and torture her. She later told police that after Hansen chained her by the neck to a post in his basement, he took a nap on a nearby couch. When he awoke, he put her in his car and he took her to Merrifield Airport, where he told her that he intended to take her out to his cabin, a shack in the Nick River area of the Manitousca Susna, thank you, Valley, accessible only by boat or bush plane. So this is what we're talking about, where it is like you can't get to some of these places without literally a plane.
And just to remind you, if you don't know or have never been to Alaska or don't know how people live up there, most people have a plane. A lot of people have a plane.
I'm pretty sure like not too many people really have a car.
Yeah.
Like, yes, they have cars up there and people drive.
A lot of people get place to place. There's literally lakes all over Alaska that are used to land planes. So just throwing that out there. And I mean, makes me think, like, I feel like he used his plane as like a grab tool sometimes with girls too. Like, this is just this one instance where he was like, hey, hired her.
He was offering these girls lots of money to come take like lewd photos, or like how he was going to offer this girl $200 to perform oral sex on him. This is a much higher rate at this time than what was the going rate for this kind of thing. So he was like, I have money. Like, if you come over and do this for me or take these photos with me, I will pay you really good. Which I mean, you live in Anchorage, Alaska. There's not much around. So what are you going to do? Well, that's good money. Like, I'm going to take that money.
Right.
So Paulson crouched in the back seat of the car with her wrists cuffed in front of her body, saw a chance to escape when Hansen was busy loading the cockpit of his airplane, a Piper PA-18 Super Cub. While Hansen's back was turned, Paulson crawled out of the back seat, opened the driver's door, and ran toward the nearby 6th Avenue. You can continue if you want.
Paulson later told police that she had left her blue sneakers on the passenger side floor of the sedan's back seat as evidence that she had been in the car. Hansen panicked and chased her, but Paulson made it to 6th Avenue first and managed to flag down a passing truck. The driver, Robert Yount, alarmed Paulson's disheveled appearance, stopped and picked her up. He drove her to the mush inn where she jumped out of the truck and ran inside. When she pleaded with the clerk to phone her boyfriend at the Big Timber Motel, Yount continued on to work. He then called police and reported the barefoot, handcuffed, naked woman.
So there is a little bit of this isn't completely correct because she actually called her pimp. This is actually true. And her pimp wanted to go kill him and went and got his gun and went to Merrill Airfield, but he was already long gone because he had seen somebody was watching them as she ran away and he was chasing after her. But at that point, he realized that he was being watched and it looked very suspicious. So he began walking back to his car, got in his car, and then left, went back to his house, took the hook where he had her chained up at down so he could fool the police when they came looking for the stuff. And then she ended up getting to where she was going to go, and then all that transpired.
Yeah. So the handy dandy Anchorage police at this time,
the incompetent handy dandy,
obviously follow up on the call and head to the mush inn. And when they arrived, Paulson had taken a cab to the Big Timber Motel. So she said, "I'm out of here." More likely, the pimp said, "I'm coming to get you.
I'm killing
and you're
this
telling me
motherfucker."
everything, and I'm going to kill this motherfucker."
He dead to rights.
Yeah, he dead. He didn't even give you $200. Okay, sorry. I don't know if that
Make
was
my
right.
motherfucking money, bitch. You get that paycheck?
I just feel like that's the work that a pimp would do. Be like, "You didn't even get $200.
I see the South Park episode where they're in like big furs and big rings and shit. He's like, "Bitch, you want to make some real motherfucking money?"
Again, we're joking about the pimp, not what's happening here.
Very true.
Okay. Paulson was still handcuffed at the motel when they arrived. She was then taken to the APD headquarters and was described the predator to the police. When questioned by ADP officers, denied the accusations, stating that Paulson was trying to just cause trouble for him because he would not pay her extortion demands. See, I told you he didn't pay her. Of course, the pimp's mad. Although Hansen had several prior run-ins with the law, his meek demeanor and humble appearance as a baker, along with the alibi from his friend John Herring, kept him from being considered a serious suspect. So we're going to head to a baker shop, talk to this guy who has been accused of raping women before and beating them, and just got, he's a baker.
Nah. He makes our donuts, so we can't really.
But really what they're thinking is, okay, we followed up on this prostitute enough.
You can't really believe what prostitutes say because they're lesser people than us.
Right, because that's definitely how the police were thinking at this time.
They're fucking terrible people. That's all I gotta say. Like if you're in a position of power to protect people, you protect everyone.
Doesn't matter what they do or who they are, they're still a person. Detective Glenn Floth of the Alaskan State Troopers had been part of a team investigating the discovery of several bodies in and around Anchorage, Seward, and Manitousca Susna Valley. The first of the bodies was found by construction workers near Yucata Road. The body, dubbed Ikita Annie by investigators, had never been identified. Later that year, the body of Joanna Messna was discovered in a gravel pit near Seward. Sorry for people who live in Alaska. I said it wrong twice. And in 1982, the remains of a 23-year-old Sherry Morrow were discovered in a shallow grave near the Knik River. Floof believed all 3 women had been murdered by the same predator. Again, this is the woman that I was speaking of earlier.
Yeah, Floof. I think that that's her. I don't know the exact names of the officers that worked on this case because there was a lot. And then there's also another guy that works in what's that place in California that does the behavioral sciences and shit that we'll probably get to it later in this. I think his name's John Douglas, but he works for like the behavioral scientists in some California town, and he's the one that says that he figured all this out. But it's hard to say who's who and like who these officers.
I would say
were.
that the first officer who was on the case is who figured it out. FBI just steps in and finishes the case. Basically,
the FBI does do a spot on job.
They do a very good job, and we can talk about that. So the FBI, and his name is Agent John Douglas, was requested to do a officer profile based on the 3 bodies that were recovered. Douglas thought the killer would be an experienced hunter with low self-esteem, with a history of being rejected by women, and would feel compelled to keep souvenirs of his murderers, such as a victim's jewelry. He also suggests that the assailant might stutter using his profile. Floof investigated possible suspects until he reached Hansen. I'm pretty sure this Floof is a female, though, because I watched many podcasts on this, and they said that the lead investigator on this case, if this isn't her name, but she is the one that solved everything.
But Douglas hit it spot on because Hansen had a speech impediment because when he was younger, his father didn't want him to use his left hand to be dominant, so they made him use his right hand, which caused a lot of like, I don't want to say like disabilities, like learning inhibitors and things like that, to where he developed a stutter. So it's like this like profile of him or the killer was almost to a fucking T.
With this forensic profile on Hansen, supported by Paulson's testimony and Douglas's profile, Floof and the APD secured a warrant to search Hansen's plane, vehicles, and home on October 27, 1983. Investigators uncovered jewelry belonging to some of the missing women, as well as an array of firearms in a corner hidden hideaway of Hansen's attic. Also found was an aerocratic chart with 37 little X marks on it, hidden behind Hansen's headboard. Many of these marks match sites where prior bodies had been found. Others were discovered later at the locations marked on Hansen's murder map.
So what's crazy about that too is the police had searched his entire house. It was spotless. You couldn't find a trace of evidence. And then finally, the last place they looked was in the attic, in that in the installation, and they dug all the way through it until they hit the back corner, which they found a little, almost like a treasure chest that had his mini 20 or mini whatever it is Ruger, and then had the jewelry, all this stuff that like was the actual souvenirs of the killings that he had taken from these, because he wasn't the type to dismember bodies and be like, I'm mounting this trophy head on my wall. He would take jewelry, like they said, and hide it away. And then the murder map is even more crazy because he was a very meticulous, like organized killer in this retrospect, where he would literally mark exactly where he would bury these bodies on this map. So you can tell that he's a good hunter because he knows the land.
And he definitely was using his like knowledge of the air and flying an airplane.
Yeah, you have to be somewhat proficient in like using maps if you're like flying.
Yeah, he definitely was a good map user for sure. And especially being a big game hunter too. I mean, a lot of times when you're big game hunting, you're out in the middle of nowhere on top of a mountain, miles and miles away from someone, and you got to know exactly where you are, otherwise you're going to get lost. So
he would deny all this too.
Yes, like, no, he would deny all of it
until his accomplices, well, I wouldn't say accomplices, until his neighbor, who he had said, this is my alibi, I'm making this plane seat with these people late at night or whenever these like atrocities occurred, until finally when his neighbor found out that he was being looked at for murder, he flipped like a book, just flipped the page. Like, nope, I'm washing my hands of this. If I have to go in front of a grand jury, nope. He 100% was not with me this night. So there you go. And guess what he does? He sings like a fucking canary.
Tells police everything that he knows. Which I don't know exactly what he knew.
He, from what I recall of all the research that I did, once he flipped, they were like, listen, you take us to these bodies and you show us where they're buried and we'll work with you a little bit. So they took him out into the bush with a high
I think he
power
would.
rifle.
Okay, I remember this part. He would only admit to 4 of them.
Yeah, only 4 out of the 30 marks that he had on there, 37 or something like that. So they take him out into the bush with a high-powered rifle trained on him. They're like, if you run, we're shooting you. And my man's is skilled in the bush. Like, he is flying around these places like it's nothing, and these cops are having a hard time keeping up with him until he comes to a certain area where he just starts digging on the ground with his hands, and then they dig one hole, they find a body. So he knows what he's doing.
Another thing we kind of skipped over this, and it's very important, is with all these bodies that were being found that were found to be his, is there was a bullet casing from his rifle. And apparently that's the thing with hunters to leave.
Yeah, if it's plastic,
I've never done that.
Metal, they leave them. A lot of hunters that I've heard of outside of Michigan and places like that, if you're using a shotgun and you're using like a plastic shell, you usually pick that up because it's just bad for the environment and it's gross. But if you're using metal casings, a lot of hunters will just leave them on the ground because it's not a sign of a kill. I guess it's not as gross to leave plastic in the wilderness. That's not going to degrade. Like metal, at least, like it's easier to find because you can use a metal detector. Metal detector to find that stuff. Or like if you're like me, where like I like money, so you grab the brass off the ground and you bring it back to the scrapyard. Which, I mean, a lot of people do that too. So, but this is where we're going to get into a lot of his victims, his known victims, and like a lot of names of people that have gone missing. So I'm going to start with a few of them, and then Riley's going to take over and do a few more of these. So, like we said, he only admitted to 4 of these, but he had 37 marks on his map, which it's hard to say if he really did kill all 37 people.
I believe the speculation is that he killed 23 of the 37, and the other 37 were killed of other causes, whether it be because they were beaten too bad,
starvation,
freezing, like all those different factors that hugely play a factor when you're in the Alaskan wilderness. Grizzly bears, because they did find bodies where they walked up to it and there was a bear eating the body.
Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to start with victims' names, ages, the dates they went missing, and then things like that. So victim, Celia Van Zanten, age 17, December 22nd, 1971 was the date she went missing. She was found December 25th, 1971. Hansen denied killing her, but is suspected because of an X on his aviation map.
And of course, that's only a 3-day difference. Between those 3 days is when she died. So his hunting expeditions,
they might not have known she was missing though until they looked into their records.
And I don't know. We don't really have details of like the condition of the body when it was found. So we might on some of these,
but I mean, given in mind here, there was an X where they found her body. So he denies killing her, but he has the exact location on his map of her body. It's a little suspect.
Little sus.
Megan Sibon Emmerich, age 17. So he's going young. July 7th, 1973, she went missing. She was not found on a date that they have published here. It's just not available. Hansen denied killing her, but is suspected because of another X on his aviation map. Mary Kathleen Thill, age 22, date missing July 5th, 1975. Hansen denied killing her as well, but is suspected due to another X on his aviation map. You can take his next ones, and I'll take a few more.
Elkna Annie, we spoke of her earlier, 16 to 25. Don't know what day she went missing. Was killed between November 1979 and June of 1980. And was found on July 21st of 1980. She had been stabbed in the back. By the time her body was discovered in a shallow grave off Uknik Lake, road, it had been partially eaten by wild animals.
I'm pretty sure this was said to be his first kill because I'm pretty sure he stabbed the first victim because it just escalated to that point, and then he started shooting them and hunting them.
Joanna Mesa, we'd spoke of her earlier, age 24, went missing on May 19, 1980, was killed on May 19, 1980, and was found late July 1980. Her body was badly decomposed and was found in a gravel pit. Roxanne Eslin, 24, went missing on June 28, 1980, died on June 28, 1980, was never found. Hansen confessed to killing her, but her body was never found.
Lisa Futrell.
And it doesn't say if there was an X on her body.
I'm sure if he confessed to killing her, that there most likely was an X or some type of notation on the map that was like, this is where she was. Otherwise, why would he confess to that? Like, why would you confess to this
Killing
one,
a real person,
but not the other
missing.
ones that you have evidence showing on your map that you put them there? So Lisa Futrell, 41, is now much older than the original like 5 or 6 we've done. She went missing September 6th, 1980. Don't know when she was killed, and she was found on May 9th, 1984. Her body was found just south of the Old Nick Bridge in his somewhat, I say, prolific, like dumping grounds, I guess.
Yeah, he definitely, it's a really big hunting area in Alaska. A lot of people go hunting on the Knik River. Sherry Monroe, 23, went missing on November 17, 1981. Don't know when she died. Was found on September 12th, 1982. She was found in a shallow grave on the bank of the Knik River. She had been shot in the back, but there were no bullet holes in her clothing, suggesting that she had been shot while nude and then redressed before being buried.
Which would make sense because he's raping these girls before he kills them. There's a lot more people. Just hold on to your hats. Andrea Fish Eltree, I think I said that right. She was 22, missing December 2nd, 1981. Don't know when she was killed. Not sure when she was found. Hansen confessed to killing her, but her body was also never found. Sue Luna, 23, May 26, 1982, missing. Don't know when she was killed, but she was found April 24th, 1984. She was stripped nude and forced to run through the forest while Hansen hunted her like an animal. She was shot to death.
Reuben Pelkey, 19. Robin, sorry.
Reuben.
Robin Pelkey, 19. Don't know when she went missing. Died somewhere in January of 1983 and was found on April 1984. Her identity was discovered via forensic genealogy in October of 2021, so very recently, before her identification was nicknamed Horseshoe Harriet.
Don't know what that nickname even classifies.
That's what they were. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's the area.
That could be it. Delane Sugar Frey, 20. Don't know when she went missing. Her approximate time of death was April 1983. August 20th, 1985 was when she was found, and her body was found by a pilot testing new tires on the sandbar of the Knik River. So I wonder if when he was landing, if he dug up a very shallow grave and then saw body remains. Because you would think that she was probably decomposed by then.
Yeah. Paula Golding, 21 or 19, they're not sure. April 25th, 1983 is when she went missing. They don't know when she died. And September 2nd of 1983, she was found in a shallow grave on the bank of the Knik River. She had been shot in the back, but there were no bullet holes in her clothing, suggesting that she had been shot. So again, same MO.
So he's stripping these people down and then hunting them like wild animals. That's fucking.
I would say when you find multiple people with the same MO, like of killing, like it's pretty much, it has to be the same person. It's like a trademark.
Yeah, it's not out of the norm for people to copy MOs either, but I also don't think that there was very many serial killers that was doing what he was doing in Anchorage, Alaska at this time. I really don't think so. I think a lot of stuff probably was domestic abuse and things like that, where like, like in a fit of rage, like you kill your spouse because she cheated on you type thing.
Yeah. And then we have a Jane Doe, was found nude and then redressed before being buried. No other information on her.
Cindy Paulson, 17, June 13th, 1983, missing, survived, and she was kidnapped, tortured, and raped before she managed to escape.
Yep.
This was the Cindy Paulson that we said made it to her pimp and then subsequently got him in trouble.
Yeah, she is the catalyst to his downfall.
100% is.
Molly Larson, 25, went missing June 1981. Was killed between June 1981 and 1983, so a 3-year span, potentially. Was found April 24th, 1984, and there's no information other than that.
Teresa Watson, 22, went missing April 29th, 1983, believed to have died in 1983 as well, and she wasn't found until April 26th, 1984, but there's no information on what happened to her or her body as well.
Andrea Federn, 24, went missing February of 1983, died in 1983, and was found April 26, 1984. Her body was found at Figure 8 Lake.
Tamara Tammy Pedersen, age 20, missing August 1982, was believed to have died between 1982 and 1983. April 29th, 1984, her body was found 1.5 miles from the Old Nick Bridge.
And out of all of these women that he murdered, like we said, he was only charged with murdering 4 of them. And that is Sherry Morrow, Johanna Mesa, Eklita Annie, and Paula Golding. He was also charged with the kidnap and rape of Cindy Paulson.
So thank you, Cindy Paulson, for helping put this monster away. Otherwise, who knows how long he would have done this for.
He probably would have done it for years and years. He'd probably still be doing it. Well, he died in 2014? So
yeah,
he probably would have been doing it
until he wasn't physically able to anymore, is my guess.
Yeah, and he probably would have lived longer because he was in prison.
So once he was arrested, he was charged with assault, kidnapping, multiple weapon offenses, theft, insurance fraud, and the last charge was related to a claim filed with an insurance agency over the alleged theft of some trophies. He used the proceeds to purchase his plane. So the plane that he used, he cheated to get to it. So there's another reason why he's getting put away. At trial, he claimed he later recovered the trophies in his backyard, but forgot to inform the insurance. He entered a plea bargain after ballistic tests returned and a match between bullets found at the crime scenes and Hansen's rifle, which was his mini
223.
Yeah, I forget the numbers, but his mini Ruger. He pleaded guilty to all 4 homicides. The police have evidence for Morrow, Mesa, Golding, and Eklita Annie, and provided details about his other victims in return for serving his sentence in a federal prison, along with no publicity in the press, which is why you probably don't know too much about him. But now that it's been so many years, people are starting to talk about him.
Yeah, his story's definitely picked up popularity. Some movies have been inspired about it. What's the movie?
Frozen Ground is one of the big ones.
Ground
but that movie sucked. I'm not gonna lie, that movie kind of sucked. But it was loosely based off of what he did.
I believe there's an episode on Criminal Minds loosely based off of what he did. There's a couple of different books that have been written that are loosely based off of what he did. The Most Dangerous Game is probably the one most people are familiar with. I think that's a film, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think I've seen it, but I don't remember. I learned about this murder probably 4 or 5 years ago. I was just watching random YouTube documentaries and came across it.
The last podcast on the left is what told me about it, where I was just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's a really crazy story. And the fact that he was able to work a deal where it got no press is just
Yeah, well,
Insane.
another condition of the plea bargain was his participation in deciphering the markings on his aviation map and location of his victims' bodies. He confirmed the police theory of how the women were abducted, adding that they would sometimes let a potential victim go if she convinced him that she would not report him to the police. So that's probably where you were getting the other X's, where he just let these people go into the woods. And I mean,
That's why there's no bodies
you'll never
there.
find him again once they go off in the woods. So he indicated that he began killing in the early 1970s, which that's a long time. 1970s to the early 1800s.
Which
1980s. My bad.
This is not Frederick Holman.
We're not going that far back. He also showed investigators 17 grave sites. 17 of the 37. So if you want to go on a limb here and say those markings probably were pretty accurate.
Yeah,
I would think so.
And like we said, he probably doesn't want to take credit for all of them because he probably didn't actually kill all of them. But what he did led to their death. So technically he did kill them.
12 of those 17, the investigators had no knowledge of. This was all news to them. So 12 unknown grave sites where they didn't even suspect him.
There could be more than 37.
Easily. Like if
37 was just when he started keeping track.
What if he was doing it beforehand and he wasn't marking it because he was like, oh, wait, I'm good at this.
Yeah, he might have thought, oh, I might get caught. Right?
Maybe he wanted to get caught in the end. Maybe. Like it was like a weird satisfaction of being like, look at my work.
That happens a lot with serial killers too. They want to get caught.
It's a psychological thing. Like he's asserting his control over these women because he had no control over his upbringing and like what happened to him and why he's so angry about all of it. So he's asserting his aggression out and being like, well, I'm controlling the situation because I'm the man here. But like at the end of the day too, like you want to feel something for what you did. And a lot of the times people want recognition for that. And he will go down in history as one of the most prolific serial killers because of this.
Definitely. It's like, as someone who hunts, and obviously I've killed things, so I know what it's like to like kill something. It's like a weird thing you feel. And I'm not sure if what he felt is what I feel when I kill a deer or a turkey or whatever it is I'm hunting. But like there is a weird emotion you feel when it happens. So
it's like a release of serotonin.
Right, exactly. Yeah. It's like it is kind of like, I guess you could say, a drug, because like chemicals are released in your body from doing it. So who knows, with the psychological effects that were like in his brain and infecting him, basically making him be who he is, like with the killing of someone, like it makes sense why he would do it the way he was doing it, because it was something he knew he was good at.
Yeah, he
had trophies to show that he was good at it.
His house was covered in trophies, like, you know, like had like
and like you said
pieces or whatever
earlier in the episode, he had gotten to a point with hunting that he felt like he wasn't even killing the apex predator anymore. Like he had killed
the 34th biggest grizzly in like record that he had killed. 34 isn't that far off number one.
No, we're talking about a massive animal.
Mm-hmm. That can shred you to pieces in like 3 seconds.
Like, he's just an interesting mind to me.
It would be really interesting to be able to like sit down and then pick these people's brains, which I know he's no longer around, but like it's just interesting to see what drives these people to that, or why they think that they had to do this in order to get the satisfaction they get. Because like me and you, like we like going ghost hunting, like that really gets my blood going, makes me feel like alive more or less than what I usually do during the day, which I mean, I feel like a normal person all day, but when I'm like, we're going out, we're going to go on an adventure tonight, like this is going to be epic, like I'm so jazzed. What makes that person tick to go, I'm going to go rape this girl, let her go in the woods, and then shoot her? That is such a taboo thought in my brain, where it's like, right, I couldn't even imagine hurting somebody just because.
Right. I don't even want to get into a fist fight with anyone.
No.
Like, Like I just don't want to hurt anyone. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
and like that, it's just such a foreign concept for most normal people, where it's like, what in their brain snapped so hard that they were like, this is okay.
and that the fact that they can show no remorse to taking a life.
Oh, 100%. Like you look at Ed Kemper, the co-ed killer, the way his mom treated him growing up, and then when he got caught and would talk to also John Douglas, which he interviewed Ed Kemper. The interviews are wild. He will to a T tell you what he did to these people, how he would like literally stab them, and he would explain, like, it's not like the movies where you stab somebody and they fall over dead. Like, you got to stab them a bunch of times and watch them bleed out slowly. What? Like, just the fact that you can sit here and not like feel bad about it whatsoever, or like this is a wild tangent, but Ed Kemper would kill his victims and then bury their heads looking up into his mom's window to spite his mother. Like, that psychology is insane to me, where it's like, did the trauma really push you to thinking that this was okay?
Right. And I think a lot of them, it does. They are okay with it. They think it's normal. For them, it is normal.
It's just another day. Well,
they wake up and they think about, okay, you know what? Like, I was at the bar last night and I seen this really pretty, attractive
I'm
prostitute.
gonna follow her home.
I'm gonna follow her home because that's normal to me. And then boom.
Well, Hansen classified these killings and stuff like this his summertime hobby, because his wife and children would go.
Yeah, it was his project. He called it a project.
Yeah, a project. So his family would leave because I think him and his wife were constantly fighting, and it wasn't a very great relationship.
She would go back to like Minnesota or something.
Yeah, wherever she was from, maybe even Iowa. I don't remember the exact location that she would go back to with the kids, but she would leave him for a large amount of time because they had such a toxic relationship that he would just be like, this is my hobby this summer. What? Like, I'm sorry. Like, you don't want to do woodworking. You want to go hunt people. Holy shit.
Next level.
And there's a lot of killers that, like, the way they think is just so much different from us, where it's like, me being a normal person, you being a normal person, I don't know if I can ever wrap my mind around that.
And if you want to see us do more true crime videos, make sure you give us a thumbs up. If this video gets 10 thumbs up, we'll
put another one.
We'll do another true crime.
I have a really good one, actually, about dude that really liked leaves and trees.
There we go. 10 likes, and we talk about the serial killer who liked leaves and trees.
And
do it up, people.
He had a weird
obsession. I'm interested. I want to talk about it.
I recently just learned about this one too, and boy, oh boy, was it fucking wild.
And again, the reason we're doing this live streaming thing, we'll try to be a more scheduled time. We're still working out the kinks of like when we do this.
We both work. I worked late today.
Usually when we do the recordings, we kind of just come into the studio and just do them. And then it isn't really a scheduled time of when we start or anything. So we'll work on that with you.
But if this starts taking off and doing well, we will say like every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. we'll be live on the dot, ready to go.
Right, exactly. And that's what we're shooting for. Eventually we'll get there. Today, sorry, I had a today we had to make dinner and stuff. It was wild.
It was wild.
It was wild. Good time. Good time.
Dinner. Good time.
This has been a lot of fun doing these live streams, and we're really, really excited to bring episode 100. Like, keeps getting closer and closer and closer, and we got some good stuff freaking planned. The Bumpies, baby! Rick Van Winkle will be here in the building, in the flesh, the first time ever. Rick Van Winkle and Billy, I believe, is going to be at the Bumpies as well.
Don't you forget about Billy. Billy's what makes the cog go around in those.
So they will be here live and direct in the studio, and we'll have Rick absolutely hosting the hell out of the Bumpies. I will be posting the categories very soon. I just have to get approval with him that we're good to go on the awards, and then we'll hopefully have some interaction from you to select some awards, and we even have a special award for you that you will be able to win. Someone in the night crew is going to have a bumpy delivered to their home. Your very own. Put it wherever you want.
Put it on your mantle, on your fireplace, in the dinner table.
And it's going to look sweet. We're making them ourselves. So,
So,
just so you know,
there
it's
you
going to be
go.
a handmade trophy from us. An award. Trophy. Award.
You want
Trophy
these.
award.
You
It's a
want
bumpy.
these.
What are we? Trophy award? It's just a fucking
A
bumpy.
trophy. The trophy to give all trophies a run for their money. It's better than the Oscars.
And if you
Guarantee
live
that.
close, maybe we'll even have Rick Van Winkle deliver it to you.
You want that.
But if you live in a different country or something, then that's probably not going to happen. We'll probably just
I
mail it to you.
mean, hey, if I have the money to travel outside of the US, I'm going.
If we can't deliver it to you in person, how about this? Rick Van Winkle sends you a nice cameo video.
That's a good idea too, and I love that.
All right. Rick, hope you're up to it. Doesn't matter because we signed your contract, so
Well, you know what it means.
we got creative control on this.
I mean, they're always doing what we're doing, so
It just happens like that. I
it
don't
just
get
happens.
Just get. Wonder what they're up to today. Well, who cares?
Yeah.
They ain't
So
interrupting this one.
please, people, let your people know. Let your inner circles, your outer circles about the like, follow, notification bell. We're gonna probably end up be posting a lot more content like this. We're most likely going to try to do mostly live streams of these audio podcast mediums as well. So that way it's like you got your podcast. If you can't listen to us on YouTube because you don't have YouTube premium, bullshit like that, you can still listen to it. But if you want to see our faces, talk about this, get animated, be along here for the ride, be along with the ride with us, son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you freaking hit that bell too, you just get bumped.
Just get bumped.
You'll get
You
a
know,
bump when we
Little
bump. Thursday night's bump. Just
Just-
remember that.
just a little
Thursday night's
bump.
bump. Hashtag Thursday night's bump.
That's a good hashtag.
I like that hashtag. It's a move.
You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Pandora,
Amazon.
iHeartRadio,
Audible.
Google. If you Google What Goes Bump the Night podcast, will pop up. Our merch site has some wicked stuff on there right now. Riley just got the Demon logo t-shirt that I'm pretty sure we showed in the last stream too. It is a sweet t-shirt. I'm
Yeah.
wearing one of our old merches right now.
That's
you
the
can't even
original.
see it
You
because of the
can't even
background.
see it.
But it's one of our old ones. These shirts are really comfortable. They wash well. Like I've had this for almost a year and a half now.
No,
No
dude,
problems.
Those are original. That's 3
Oh, this
years.
is 3 years ago. Yeah, and no peeling, nothing. Like these are great shirts. So if you want some of that, let us know. Go on the website, check out the Facebook, Twitter. If you haven't looked at our Twitter yet, our Twitter usually posts quite a bit.
Yeah,
It's pretty fun.
it gets going.
Hopefully pretty soon. I think the weather is finally good enough for us to start going back out on our adventures, and we're probably going to very soon start posting our investigation videos.
Like very soon.
So keep an eye out and ear out for that. You're going to want to see these because
Yeah.
usually pretty great.
And remember, folks, keep your ears and eyes open for what really goes
Bump.
in the night.
Bye, guys. Thank
Peace.
you. Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
love you.
We love you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.